All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very sorry that we have to compete with everything that's going on here, but I promise that if you pay attention here, we're going to give you a good session and discussion. I'm very happy to be joined by three very, very interesting individuals with very interesting solutions today to talk about the circular economy. And to my right, we have Nin Castle, co-founder of Reverse Resources that provides solutions for sustainable fashion. And to my right then is Natasha Viitasaari, who's co-founder and managing partner of Nusa Sentara, which is a waste-to-energy technology. And last but not least, we have Mr. Sagar Mahagaonkar, the Business Development Director of Winnow. So this afternoon, we're going to be talking about circular economy. And I think when you think about it as a concept, in Asia, this concept is really growing. For decades, we have been living on a linear economic model, which is a take, make, and waste model. And this is simply unsustainable. So in Asia now, you can see businesses as well as governments starting to think about what we can do to tackle the fact that we are facing resource scarcity as well as accelerating climate change. And we are just facing a lot of issues such as pollution, environmental degradation that requires solutions to tackle this. So I'm very happy to be here to be joined by these individuals who will share with you some of the solutions that enable a circular economy in Asia. So perhaps we can start with you, Sasha.
Thanks, Jessica. Hi, I'm Natasha, and I'm co-founder of Nusa Sentara along with my two other siblings. And we are working on waste-to-energy systems. And I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about gasification technology, but I'm so excited to be here with my co-panelists because I think just opening up this discussion is just one step forward in finding a solution. Because to generalize it, I think if we look at the last 100 years, you could pretty much say that our waste policy has been out of sight, out of mind approach. It would be like going to clean your house and taking everything, the dirty dishes, your dirty clothes, some rubbish, and just shoving it in the closet and being happy with that because you have a clean room. And essentially, this is what landfilling is. We dig a hole and we bury our garbage, and we think that that's a good way to deal with it. And a more extreme example would be shipping your waste abroad so that you don't even have to deal with it in any way. And since 1988, China was dealing with more than 50% of the world's plastic waste. And since 2017, that was a big wake-up call with the export ban on plastics. So countries including the US, UK, and Germany have started to have to deal with that. In the last year, you've probably noticed that oceans plastics has become a huge issue. And that's not because it's a new issue, obviously. In large part, it has to do with the UN resolution that was passed last December. And I'm just excited to talk about this and hopefully come to some solutions. But I'm going to pass it on now.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. So my name is Sagar, and I represent a company called Winnow. We help commercial kitchens to manage and reduce food waste. So food waste, it's a big problem, right? So globally, a third of the food is wasted. So until we know what's being wasted, why is it being wasted, and how it's being wasted, it's very difficult to come up with solutions to combat that. On the similar lines, the United Nations came up with sustainable targets, out of which one of them is zero hunger. But there's also another one which is reducing food waste by half by 2030. So it's a big challenge, and our company is helping a little bit by that, by getting to the root and by not producing as much food so that there's less wastage, and that helps in circular economy. And I'm very excited to talk about that further.
Thank you very much, Saga. Pass it over to Nin.
Hello, I'm Nin Castle, co-founder of Reverse Resources, and we help the circular economy in the textiles and fashion industry. And this industry is very particularly interesting when it comes to circular economy, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about our solution later on. But it's under-talked about, textiles with its waste. We consume now 3 times more than we did even 15 years ago. And also, what's less talked about, we have a lot of focus upon plastics in terms of packaging and bottles, but actually, if you look at the global PET production, over 60% of PET goes into textiles and only 30% into plastics and bottles. And at the moment, we don't have an effective, it's possible, it's completely possible to recycle textiles, polyester. We don't have a good system for enabling that at the moment.
So thank you so much for your introductions. I'm now going to invite all of you to give your 1-minute elevated pitch about your solution to tell us in detail, but if very critical, succinct points, why does your solution matter in the circular economy? Tasha.
In waste to energy solutions, we definitely matter for the circular economy because we're dealing with the waste that already exists. The plastics that have accumulated are the problem, and that's what's polluting the environment. So with waste to energy, using gasification technology, we provide a solution that is environmentally sound as well as providing a renewable source of energy.
Can I maybe get you to explain how do you see this technology being applied to Asia, where we are facing so much problems with landfill?
Well, right now, Nusa Sentara, we're a Finnish company, but our first projects are based in Indonesia. And for us, this is an ideal climate, the decentralized aspect of the country based on island communities. We already have a number of sites where we will have smaller plants, and we're able to deal with the waste in a local way.
Can you explain a little bit about how you collect your feedstock? What is your feedstock? How do you collect it? And then what do you do with it to make it into something that's usable, that goes back into the economy?
Okay, so for our first sites, we're focusing on areas where there's already a dump. So the feedstock is already there for us. In the future, we are interested into expanding into decentralized forms of collection, where we have ideas for that, but right now we have sites located at dump sites. And the way that it's linked to the circular economy is we're taking a waste product and getting value from it in the use of energy.
Okay, thank you. For those who are just walking by, please do join us. And I'd like to encourage also our audience here to contribute your questions, if you have any, on the Slido website, which is on the screen. And we can take some questions later. Sagar, I'll come to you now. You have a food waste solution. Can you explain how it works and where in Asia is this being applied?
Yeah, so before actually I go into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the problem itself. So food waste, it's a big problem. There's a lot of ramifications of food waste. Globally, 1/3 of the food is wasted now, which has a lot of environmental impact. So similar to what you said, it goes into landfills, which is not great for the environment. There's a lot of economic, financial impact. So the waste has a value of about $1 trillion globally. Now that's a big number. In a small way, my background is, I come from a hospitality background, and I used to have restaurants. And I've faced this problem personally because all my profits were actually going into the bin. So there is a lot of financial implication as well. But finally, I guess the most important one is the social impact. So globally, 1 billion people go to bed hungry. So if you look at it, we are wasting 1/3 of the food, and 1/6 of the people are going to bed hungry. We need to sort of improve our system somewhere. So that's what our solution does. So we help commercial kitchens to measure and manage food waste, so they know where the food is being thrown away. In Asia, we work quite extensively with hotels. Singapore, we all love food. I personally love a lot of buffets, but there's a ridiculous amount of food waste on a buffet. So up to about 20% of the food is thrown away. So add to that the food that's actually thrown away from a customer's plate. There's a lot of food wastage there. So we help hotels to reduce that. We work with contract catering companies. We work with quick service restaurants. So IKEA, we work quite extensively with them. And we work with cruise liners. So those are the 4 key areas where we help commercial kitchens. The goal is that we should come up with a solution where we are actually tracking the food waste in our own households, because we waste a lot of food in home as well. But that's probably a few years later.
Okay, thank you. We'll come to Nin now. Nin, explain to us how your solution helps to reduce textile waste.
Okay, so we have a four-sided platform that connects and also creates win-win business cases for each stakeholder around the circular economy. And we work with production leftovers, so that's pre-consumer waste, which is at the moment a completely underestimated resource within the fashion industry. A lot of companies focus on the post-consumer, which is of course a very, very, very big problem. But actually the production leftovers, we have proven now that 25% of textile fiber is spilled during fabric and garment production, and there's many reasons for this. But these textiles actually are the low-hanging fruit of the circular economy. They are the easiest to sort, and also in some cases the easiest to recycle. I'll give you a little example about what happens at the moment and how we are improving the situation. So at the moment, the scraps get mixed up and sold on in bulk to traders and then on to the recyclers. So when the recyclers receive these, the traders sort them as best they can by touch and burn. And then the recyclers receive the textiles, but they have no idea where this textile came from, whose brand was it, exactly what Pantone color shade, what's the chemical history, what coatings have been applied. They have no idea, no information on this textile, which is a big problem for them. And the amount of money spent in testing, chemical testing, the scraps as they come in is enormous. But all this information exists in the factory. Everything is, all the information is in the factory. It just doesn't follow the scrap to the recycler. At the moment, the scraps flow between 3 to 5 levels of traders, and with our software, it flows through just one. And we have proven that factories, they can earn 10 times more from a segregated textile through our system than selling it on to the local market. And also the recyclers get exactly what they want and can reduce lead times and improve quality.
Thank you very much, Nin. I'm just going to pause here a second and actually turn to our guests here this afternoon. How many of you are startups? Can I just get a show of hands? Okay. How many of you are investors? Okay, interesting. And how many of you, before this session, knew what the circular economy was? Okay, very good. So all of you are interested in this issue. How many of you would invest in a circular economy solution? Fantastic. So we have the right audience here. And the reason why I wanted to do that was, you know, circular economy is quite a new concept, but it just makes so much common sense. And I think listening to all your solutions, I think that, you know, if we can scale this up really to all the markets around Asia and around the world, we're really going to see a huge difference. So I'm going to turn to some of the questions that are being posed here. And I think there are a couple for you, Sagar, which is to give some concrete examples of how do you exactly reduce food waste? When you go to a commercial kitchen, what are you doing there?
Sure. So the basic principle behind this is what gets measured, it gets managed, right? So in the commercial kitchen, we don't really know what's being thrown away. So what we've done is we've come up with a software solution. There's a hardware element to that where when the food is thrown away, so imagine we all go to buffets, right? At the end of a buffet service, there's a lot of food that's still being kept on the buffet table. Now it gets thrown away. So when it's thrown away, we measure what food that is. We know what item that is. We know the weight of that item. And then the kitchen team gets a report on a daily basis to say that yesterday they've thrown away, let's say, 3 kilos of scrambled eggs, right? Or 5 kilos of chicken curry. Now, when they get it over a period of time, so they get it on a daily basis for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and if they're throwing away the same items again and again, they know that they need to produce it less. So that's the basic principle behind that. So it's all data-driven. So once we've got the data, then we can actually talk with the kitchen team, understand, explain, and then work on ways to reduce it. So yeah, so there's a physical component, but then there's a lot of data-driven analytics behind that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we actually, in a way, have very similar business models. And I think the first thing that's needed is the great visibility on the waste that's there. Because we see at the moment with the improvement in the interest in circular economy and emergence of new technologies like gasification and so many others as well, we won't have the knowledge and the skills to organize this if we don't have the visibility and understanding of the data behind it. And I think this is the really important first step to take.
Okay, that's really interesting. I just want to draw your attention to this really interesting question, which I think, is worth a discussion. How can companies in the circular economy benefit from a population that's increasingly zero waste? And I think that's really kind of a little bit of a confusion here, right? Because when you become zero waste, it means that your circular economy solutions are working. You need circular economy solutions in order for society to achieve zero waste. Can I get maybe some of you to contribute on?
So as you're saying, and as this question deals with, a lot of the focus right now is on prevention and on zero waste. And this is the first tier in the waste management hierarchy. But unfortunately, what are we going to do with the massive amounts of waste that have already accumulated in our natural environments and even in landfills? So moving towards a zero waste society is the goal, but we need major infrastructural changes to deal with the problems that already exist. And that's what solutions like gasification technology can do. We can take the plastic that already exists and produce a renewable source of energy. And I'd just like to add here that gasification is not so well known, and it sometimes gets a bad rap because it's mixed up often with incineration. And gasification is a lot cleaner. You're not just burning the feedstock. It's actually a chemical conversion process where synthetic gas is produced that can be used as a renewable energy. But if one of my colleagues want to add, I'll pass it on.
Thank you. I'm just keeping in mind the audience that we have here, which is basically investors and startups, right? So maybe all of you can share. I know you're in different stages of development. You're less than 1 year old, 2 to 3 years old, 5 years old. What is the one challenge that you had in getting your solution to be scaled up? And what was like a critical factor that enabled you to get success? Maybe Sagar, you can start. You're most developed in this panel.
Sure. So I think initially the main reluctance comes from two sources, because any solution that costs money, right? So there's a payment. What we have is a SaaS model. So companies have to sign up for 2 years and they have to pay for 2 years. So initially the challenge was, without seeing any concrete results, it's very difficult for somebody then to invest and to commit for a couple of years. Also, the other thing is it's a behavior change, right? We don't like waste, so nobody likes wasting food or throwing food. However, in a kitchen environment, there's bound to be food waste, right? There's what we're working towards is the optimum level. So it's just trying to figure out, from a kitchen perspective, talking to chefs. I don't know how many of you have ever dealt with chefs, but chefs are extremely temperamental. Chefs have a huge ego. They're really nice people. They're very creative people. But if you go and tell a chef that, hey, you guys, you're wasting too much food in the kitchen, he's going to have some choice words for you. So
he's going to throw a knife at you.
yeah, so effectively, I think that's one of the other challenges that we had, to sort of to communicate to the chef that it's a way for them to understand what's happening in the kitchen. They have a gut feel, right? They know what's being wasted away. But once they've got the data behind that, then they can make a better decision. So I think those were the key challenges that we had. But once we started showing results, and again, our clients are commercial organizations, so they want to see profit. So once they start seeing that there's a result, there's an ROI, then they start using us more and more. Yeah.
Fantastic. Perhaps Nin or...
No, go ahead. So what was the question again, sorry?
Your biggest challenge right now.
So our biggest challenge, because we're a four-sided platform, which makes us slightly more complicated than a normal, two-sided business relationship. But actually, when you look at the circular economy and you use a bit of like systems thinking, you need all of those four stakeholders to communicate and work together to keep that circulation going. And I think it was a challenge for us at the beginning to prove the business model in each of those four cases. And now I'm very excited to say we have proven the business model. We are launching our first MVP in the 1st of October and already have a user list waiting. So we've gone through that stage, but getting each sector, it was very easy at the beginning to get the brands on board because they were very interested in the amount of waste they were producing.
Tell us more about the MVP. In which country is it, and how did you get it to all come together?
Well, at the moment, it's an MVP that connects the recycler with the factory. So the factory can actually have market information on what is every country. We're doing it. It'll be launched first of all. We're doing pilots at the moment in Bangladesh, just about to start one in India, but we will, with the MVP, or mainly be running in Bangladesh, and then India, Mauritius, and hopefully Turkey.
Fantastic. Natasha, do you want to add anything?
Okay, I'll finish off by saying our biggest challenge is entering a sector that's traditionally managed by the government. We're entering into the energy and waste management sector, but we feel that once we're able to get over this hurdle and the investment into the technology itself, our system is going to be very profitable, because with our feedstock is essentially free. We have a basic tipping fee, but after that we have low operational costs, and we'll be selling the electricity at a good rate.
Okay, thank you. I want to come to the top question that we have here from our audience, and it's how difficult is it to penetrate the Asian market? I mean, all three of you are in the Asian market, so what was the most difficult thing, and how did you overcome it? Sagar, you want to go?
Sure. So, Asian market is very difficult or very different to all the other markets. So as a business, we were founded in UK. The challenges there are different, but then there is a little bit more awareness about sustainability. There's a little bit more awareness about food waste. Asia is slightly different because a lot of it is still bottom line driven. The topic of sustainability is not discussed as much. When it comes to food waste specifically, there's a huge disparity. So there's certain countries in certain areas where there's a lot of food waste, and then there's certain areas where there's very limited food waste. So for us, Asia market was difficult, and we've had more success in hotels because there's bigger buffets. But yeah, it's not the easiest market to penetrate. It's about changing the mindset and having that shift in the mindset. Also, in Asian market, I think people are a little bit reluctant to take to be the first one, right? To be a pilot case. So they want to see the results from other places before they actually apply it within this region. So those were the main challenges for us.
So how did you win your first Asian customer? Did you have to court them with beer or, I don't know, mooncakes or durian maybe?
Great question, but no. So what happened was so one of our bigger clients is Accor, and we got Accor via France. So we started speaking to them in France, and they realized that there's more waste here. So that's how we got into Accor. And with hospitality, people move around a fair bit. So the people that we might have worked with today moved to another hotel, and then that's how the word was spread. We also got very lucky in the sense that one of our biggest clients, we met them at a social event, and that was the quickest sale we got. That was one of our biggest deals. It happened over a period of 3 months, and it was a regional deal as well. So we got lucky that way, but otherwise, I guess it's being at the right place at the right time and just keeping at it. I guess that's the key factor.
Thank you. Natasha, I mean, a Finnish technology going into Indonesia, that must be super challenging. How are you breaking into that market?
So we broke into this market it's connected to personal reasons. Like I mentioned, I'm a co-founder along with my siblings, and my brother had been living in Indonesia for almost a decade. So certainly cultural understanding and knowledge of the language helped. And we noticed that there would be a great opportunity for technology transfer there. So it's also been a very open environment in the last 2 years. There's been policy changes for waste to energy solutions. And because we have our Finnish technology partner, NoCart, they're already well-versed in taking their solutions internationally. We think we can go ahead with this.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Nin, how did you get into these markets?
Well, first of all, because of having good connections with the brands. And, brands often say jump, and the factories, unfortunately, have to say how high. But really, actually, when you have a good business case for the factories and you can show increased earnings, they get pretty interested quite quickly. And I think there is a desire to improve and do things better as well. Of course, not in every single factory, but in a large proportion. And I think sometimes factories especially get a bad reputation. They get squeezed from every angle in a race to the bottom, and they would like to do things better, but often they're not able to.
Okay, thank you. With an eye on the time, I think that's all we have time for. But I just wanted to end by saying that I want to congratulate Slush Singapore for putting sustainability and the circular economy on the agenda. Because if you think about the solutions that we need today and where the business opportunities are and the investment opportunities, you cannot have a business without thinking about the social and environment impact of what you're doing. So I congratulate all of you as well as having all these amazing solutions. Just a little plug about Eco-Business, which I run. It is Asia Pacific's only media organization dedicated to sustainable development. And we have this initiative called the Livability Challenge, which is organized in June, July every year. And we provide a $1 million prize to a sustainability solution. So last year was the inaugural version, and we focused on waste management and cooling. And very often, the circular economy is a criteria, because when you think about the sustainability performance of any solution, they have to be circular today. And so I would encourage any of you, if you're startups, to go and Google this challenge. Next year, we're having the challenge again, and the $1 million prize is up for grabs. So thank you for being such a good audience, and please thank our panelists this afternoon for being here with us this afternoon. Thank you.